I'm just gonna come out and say it. You're cheating, aren't you? I finally said it. Mike's eyes widened in shock, but after a moment of thought, with his eyebrows furrowed, he grinned. So it finally came out, huh? Well, yeah, I've been pretty free. Without any sign of remorse, Mike continued. Oh, I have something to tell you, too. He strode up to me with a lewd smile and said, "Take care of the kid with the incurable disease, will you?" What? He's attached to you. Make him happy, okay? That's the least you can do for me. In return, I'm moving on to someone new. If Kate and I have a boy, he'll be the future president of the company. In short, Mike plans to have a child with Kate, the president's daughter. Indeed, this would secure his future, combining the power of lineage. Such a pathetic, dependent thought. Just then, the door banged open, and in came Jim. He moved adeptly in his wheelchair, approaching Mike. Suddenly, he stood up and exclaimed, "Mom, it's time to fight back." I am Sophia Thompson, 30 years old. I became a full-time housewife after getting married, but now I'm troubled about my child. Though I say my child, there's no blood relation. He is Mike's son from his previous marriage. He's a quiet kid. Mike brought the child the day after we registered our marriage. I knew Mike was divorced, but I had no idea he had a child, let alone one he was raising. I don't know what to say. I was bewildered, but Mike replied without any guilt. No, really, he's so calm. He's 3 years old and not troublesome at all. Looking at the 3-year-old child, he gazed back at me curiously. His innocent face stirred indescribable feelings within me. His name is Jim. Say hi to your new mom, Jim. Encouraged by Mike, Jim looked up and bowed slightly. Mom? Yeah, it's a surprise, but that's how it is. Take care of him. I am weak-willed, as embarrassing as it is to admit. If Jim hadn't been there, maybe I could have protested. But I couldn't say a word against Mike with Jim's big, curious eyes on me. So I became a mother to a 3-year-old as soon as I got married. I had wanted children eventually, but never imagined I'd become a mother so suddenly. True to Mike's words, Jim was a very good kid. He ate whatever was given and never threw tantrums. A well-behaved child indeed. He really is well-behaved. Mike said, right? Well, I don't know much about it. What? Before marrying me, Mike's parents were raising Jim. I'm too busy with work to raise a kid, right? Is that so? But now that you're here, Sophia, and you're unemployed, it's all good. Childcare was left entirely to the in-laws, and Mike only saw Jim on weekends. This is why the in-laws were overly grateful. We're getting old, and though he's adorable, it's been tough. Having Jim around disrupts our plans. Plans? You know, kids get sick suddenly, and it's hard to deal with the noise and all. As my in-laws nodded like they had endured much, Jim watched expressionlessly. Despite his illness, he didn't seem like the type to cause trouble. But I was naive to think so. At first, he was probably cautious around me, the stranger in his life, which is why he was so well-behaved. But that's dangerous. Stop, yay cheese. A 3-year-old is more active than I expected. He would drag a step stool to rummage through the fridge, fiddle with the stove, and play in the bathwater, splashing everywhere. Today, he drew on the wall with a permanent marker. I reported this to Mike when he returned from work, exhausted. He reacted as if it was none of his business, saying, "Oh, really? I never knew childcare would be this hard. Could you watch him this weekend? I need to catch up on some housework." I could barely manage the day's chores, because I couldn't take my eyes off Jim. It's been half a year since I moved into this house after our marriage, and there are still unpacked boxes. If Mike could watch him, I could focus on those. But his response was shocking. Why should I? But you're Jim's stepfather. You're giving up on childcare because Jim isn't related to you by blood? I was speechless. Me, giving up on childcare? No one said that. I only asked for help on weekends so I could get some housework done that I can't do otherwise. I'm just asking you to spend a little time with Jim. You know, that's just impossible. Mike sighed heavily and said, "You've got to be kidding. You're unemployed, right? I'm the one working. How can you say such stupid things when you're being supported? But you could help a little, at least on your days off. That's the point. It's my day off. Looking after a child is just another job. Why do you think I married you in the first place? What's that supposed to mean? Did you marry me just to have someone to look after the child?" Mike clearly realized he had slipped up. Though he apologized afterwards, he only played with Jim for about an hour on Saturday morning. By the time I noticed, Mike had already gone out. Really, what a headache. As I exhaled with exhaustion, Jim gripped my little finger tightly. "Mommy, tired? Are you okay?" Jim asked with his chubby cheeks and a tilted head. "Just a little, but I'm okay. Seeing you gives me energy." As I said this and hugged him tightly, Jim let out a yay and laughed heartily. Every day it's tough doing household chores and looking after Jim. I'm tired, but I have come to love Jim like my own child. That's when it happened. One day I noticed something off about Jim's gait, so I took him to the pediatrician. Hoping it was just my over-concern, we went for a checkup. But the doctor's words were shocking. If this continues, there's a possibility he won't be able to walk. Jim might have a serious illness. My mind went blank as the doctor explained. I wanted to consult Mike immediately, but he was at work and unreachable. Mike didn't return until late at night. What's with all these calls during work? It's a hassle getting so many messages when I'm busy. Mike sighed ostentatiously, clueless about the situation. Tears welled up in my eyes. "Today at the hospital with Jim," I said with a trembling voice, and Mike covered his mouth in shock. The prognosis varies from person to person, so nothing's certain yet. But the doctor said, there's a possibility he won't be able to walk again. He's hospitalized for tests. "Please come with me for the next appointment," I asked, feeling unable to handle it alone. Mike's presence would be reassuring. Despite his busy work schedule, it was an emergency. He should be able to take some leave. But Mike just shook his head. "I don't know anything about it." "A serious illness? No way my child is defective. How can you say such a thing?" I was trembling with anger. Mike frowned at me. "It must be the fault of his mother before you. Her bad genes. Damn it, pushing this on me." I couldn't understand what he was saying. Mike didn't seem to care about Jim, just making excuses. Damn it. I shouldn't have taken him in. "Sophia, you're his mother now, right? You take care of it. I'm busy." He left for the changing room, and I stared at his retreating back, stunned. Mixed feelings of worry and resolve filled me. Since that day, Mike started coming home even later. Was it because he couldn't face reality, or was he just escaping the trouble? I thought the latter. I decided not to expect anything from Mike. I had to protect Jim. Jim, good morning. I missed you. Fortunately, thanks to Mike, I was a full-time housewife. I had the time. That was something to be grateful for. A week later, Jim was discharged from the hospital. Mike came to pick him up on discharge day, maintaining appearances. "Thank you for everything. From now on, our family will work together. Please support us." The father, who didn't know his son's condition and was running from reality, had the nerve to say that. I thanked everyone again, then got into the car with Jim and Mike. After discharge, Jim had to use a wheelchair. Watching him unable to run around and looking bored every day was heartbreaking. Mike continued to come home late. That's it. To cheer him up, I gave Jim a drawing set. I used to like drawing, and I was pretty good at it. "Wow, Jim, you're good at drawing too. Really? Like Mom?" Pleased with the praise, or maybe happy to share something with me. Jim's eyes sparkled as he immersed himself in drawing. 4 years flew by and Jim turned 7. Life in a wheelchair seemed hard, but he appeared to enjoy school, which was a relief. I tried to discuss things with Mike multiple times, but it felt like he was avoiding me. And we never had a proper conversation. My worries intensified until one day I discovered Mike's affair. A friend suddenly informed me about it. "Sorry for the sudden message, but I saw your husband coming out of a hotel with a young woman." Along with the message, my friend, several pictures through the messaging app. Come to think of it, Mike hadn't come home since the day before yesterday. I hadn't thought much of it, assuming he was on a business trip. As I continued to exchange messages with my friend, it was clear that they were being very considerate. Soon after, everything became clear. Soon after, my friend called me. "Sophia, are you okay? Should I come over?" I could hear the worry in my friend's voice. It's understandable. They must have struggled with the decision to tell me. But to my friend's concern, I wasn't as shocked as I should have been. In fact, I had suspected something was off with Mike. His workplace wasn't known for excessive overtime, yet recently he had been coming home late every night. Sometimes he would return in the early morning. Also, Mike and I slept in separate bedrooms, but I had heard him chatting happily on the phone at night on several occasions. Surprisingly, I'm okay. This gives me the upper hand in a divorce. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Yes, thank you. After hanging up, I was suddenly overwhelmed with despair. Realizing that what was once a gray area is now undoubtedly true makes you feel like this. A dark feeling swirled inside me. More than being shocked about the affair, I was shocked that Mike was enjoying his freedom while I was struggling alone. While I was grappling with my worries and crying over Jim's condition, Mike was happily spending time with another woman. Thinking about this brought tears of a different kind. Jim is so dear and loved. With that comes endless responsibility and pressure every day. Trying not to let my struggles show, I've been keeping up appearances. And this is the result. Such a betrayal. What should I do now? Pretend I don't know and continue living like this? Or confront the affair and go for a divorce? Which would be better for Jim? And the more I thought, the more overwhelmed I felt, and tears streamed down my face. My vision blurred. Maybe that's why I didn't notice Jim entering the room. Are you crying? Oh, Jim, this is nothing. Is it someone? Did Dad do something to you? Why would you think that? I've always been careful not to badmouth Mike in front of Jim or vent any frustrations. Because Dad doesn't like me, right? So I thought he must have done something to you, Mom. And? I didn't tell you, but I saw Dad on a date with another woman. They looked happy. I saw them once. Jim said this, looking down. I hugged him tightly, realizing he'd been carrying these thoughts. This isn't just my problem anymore. I need to face it head on. Do you like Dad, Jim? Jim hesitated a bit before answering timidly. I like Mom. I see. Mom loves you very much too. From that moment, I began to take steps towards divorce. I hired a private investigator and started gathering evidence against the affair to strengthen my case. Everything was prepared smoothly. I decided to confront Mike the day he returned. It seemed he had come home a few times, but I never encountered him. His belongings and bank books were still at the house, so he had to return eventually. That would be the time for our conversation. I thought I had made up my mind, but sometimes I felt uncertain. Is this really the right thing to do? I no longer have any love for Mike. I'm sure I won't regret divorcing him. But when I think about Jim, doubts arise. There's no blood relation between me and Jim. That fact bothered me. I planned to take custody after the divorce, and I couldn't imagine Mike objecting. But still, isn't it better to have a father even in name only? Mike often left the house to escape, and now he hadn't returned for days. Yet as long as he doesn't initiate a divorce, it won't happen. If we remain silent, life will continue like this. At least we won't have financial worries. That's a big blessing. These thoughts surfaced in my mind. Mom? Sensing my hesitation, Jim tightly grasped my hand. It's okay. I'm here with you. Despite being only 7, his reassuring words made me smile. Yes, let's be strong together, okay? Yes. 2 days later, in the middle of the night, Mike returned home temporarily. We need to talk. The next day, when Mike woke up before noon, I initiated the conversation. Talk about what? It's probably something annoying, right? I just got back, give me a break. Mike yawned widely. I took a deep breath and looked at him squarely. I'm gonna be direct. You're having an affair, aren't you? Mike's eyes widened in shock, but after a moment of thought, he smirked. So it's finally out, huh? Yeah, I've been pretty busy. So you admit it? Yeah. And by the looks of it, you're planning to divorce me, right? If you have the divorce papers, bring them out. I'll sign them right away. I didn't expect him to resist, but neither did I anticipate him admitting so readily. Surprised by my reaction, Mike's smile grew wider. Thought I'd be more upset, huh? Yes, I didn't expect you to admit it so easily. Well, I'm at ease now. My current soulmate is the president's daughter. Wow, you've done your homework. Impressive, Sophia. Mike clapped his hands exaggeratedly, feigning surprise. Yeah, we met through work. She's the so-called president's daughter, and even said she'd pay any compensation to be with me. I wondered if he was trying to escape, but I refrained from pressing further. Is that so? That's convenient for us. By the way, I need to confirm something. Oh, I also have something I want to tell you. He walked up to me with a sly smile and said, "Good luck taking care of the sick brat. That's the least you can do for me. In return, I'm moving on to someone new. If Kate and I have a boy, he'll be the future president. So Mike intends to have a child with Kate, the president's daughter. Indeed, this would secure his future. What a pathetic, dependent thought." Just then, the door banged open and there was Jim. He moved adeptly in his wheelchair, approaching Mike, and then to everyone's surprise, he stood up and exclaimed, "Mom, it's time to fight back." Mike was shocked to see Jim standing, his mouth hanging open. "Jim, I thought you couldn't walk." "Why are you standing?" "I worked hard," Jim replied. Indeed, Jim, once thought never to walk again, had diligently done his rehabilitation, and could now take a few steps on his own. "Well, good for you?" Mike tried to sound nonchalant. "Yes, thanks to that, he's been growing wonderfully. He even helped me prepare for this divorce. You don't have to tell a kid that?" Mike seemed surprised that a child was involved. He was slightly flustered. "A good negative example. Fine, I have the president's daughter with me. You and your defective child can do whatever. By the way, which president's daughter is Kate?" Mike chuckled, prepared to be amazed. Kate is the daughter of Johnson Construction's president. Johnson Construction is one of the biggest companies around here. It's understandable why he would be so proud. However, Mike was making a big mistake, unaware of the truth. Unknowingly, Mike puffed out his chest, looking smug. I feigned ignorance and asked, "Johnson Construction. That's impressive. I'm shocked, right?" Nodding, Mike looked pleased with himself. I smiled and told him I never knew your preference was that way. "I'm sorry for not realizing it before." Confused, Mike looked bewildered. I continued, "That you're not interested in women but in men." "Kate is a girl," I said. "That's strange. There's no daughter in the Johnson Construction family." "That can't be. You're lying. Just wait and see." Despite his bravado, Mike seemed panicked. He took out his phone and started calling someone, shaking. It was Kate. Mike kindly switched the call to speakerphone, making the entire conversation audible. "Hey Kate, I just heard something unbelievable. Sorry to ask something weird, but you're a girl, right?" Mike asked nervously. Kate responded nonchalantly, "Oh dear, it's finally out." Mike's face lost all color, turning pale. "That's a lie." But at that time there wasn't anything, right? He was trying to ask something about a certain body part. Despite having a physical relationship, he couldn't believe that the person was male. Kate responded calmly, "Well, of course, I've already had the surgery. I'm a girl, body and soul. Oh, but I haven't changed my legal gender yet. My dad's been hesitant about it." Unfazed by the revelation of her past as a male, Kate seemed unbothered. Meanwhile, Mike paled even further and collapsed to his knees. "No way. Kate was a man? Hey, that's rude, Mike." "I am a girl in body and mind," Kate shouted into the phone. "Shut up. Don't spout nonsense. A real man pretending to be a woman." The living room fell into an eerie silence. I wondered if Kate was shocked on the other end of the phone, but soon realized it wasn't necessary to worry. "Bah, Mike, you're unbelievable. You said you loved me, you big liar. I'm done with you. Forget about introducing you to my dad or the headhunting offer. Goodbye." "Wait, Kate, But Kate had already cut off the call abruptly. Mike remained kneeling, utterly dumbstruck. He had anticipated a rosy future with the president's daughter, only to find out that Kate was actually the president's son. And now she had abruptly broken up with him due to his careless words. Moreover, as a married man who had indulged in affairs, Mike still had responsibilities to fulfill. "That's unfortunate, but it's your fault. She was a girl in body and mind. No matter what she is now, if she was born a man, she's still a man. Oh, it's disgusting. I was with someone like that. I don't care how you feel. More importantly, how do you plan to pay the compensation?" Mike muttered softly, his eyes darting back and forth. His lifeline, Kate, had just coldly abandoned him. Despite it being winter, sweat formed on his forehead, trickling down his face. "Don't think you can get away without paying. I'll make sure you pay the compensation and child support. But I have no savings. I spent almost everything on Kate, and now I'm broke." What does that have to do with the compensation you owe us? Mike looked worried, his eyes darting around. He remained seated, making no attempt to stand up. But then, as if struck by an idea, he blurted out, "Compensation is just temporary. Continuous support would be better, right?" I glared at him, frowning, and Mike looked up at me with a pleading gaze. "You're a kind-hearted person, Sophia. You were going to take Jim anyway after divorcing me, right? But think about it. You're unemployed, without savings. Life isn't that easy. And your point is?" I asked. "Let's get back together." Mike nodded earnestly. "Yeah, that's the only way. If we do, we can continue living as before. It's a win-win situation. Let's just call it even this time." "I see. Could you just keep jokes to yourself?" Mike's smile turned into a grimace as I pointed at him. "What do you mean? Why am I being blamed? You're the one who cheated and squandered the savings, not me. Don't trivialize this. But you're a housewife without any significant qualifications. You won't find a job easily. Wouldn't it be better to get back together with me?" "No need to worry, I've already found a job." Mike looked dumbfounded. "Thanks to Jim." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "My drawing videos are super popular," Jim said excitedly, showing Mike the tablet. Displayed were a young hand and a pleasant voice, along with warm drawings. When Jim was 3 and his illness was discovered, he couldn't play active games. Wanting to provide some enjoyment, I introduced him to drawing, a pastime I loved as a child. I was often praised for my skill, but Jim surpassed me. His drawings weren't just skillful, they were unique and full of character. Most importantly, he looked truly happy while drawing. Wanting to share this joy, I casually filmed him and uploaded it to social media, making sure his face wasn't visible. A celebrity noticed and shared it, and Jim's drawing videos quickly spread. Recently, we started earning from advertisements. My video editing skills, initially just a hobby, improved with daily practice. Now I even take on editing jobs for others. Jim's drawing videos are just a hobby. If he wants to stop, we will. But I plan to study more and take on more editing work. I'll get more clients that way, so you don't need to worry about us. Why didn't you tell me Jim was making so much money? If I had known, I wouldn't have let you get dazzled by money and make Jim do things he shouldn't. That's what I couldn't stand. That must have hit a nerve. Mike clenched his back teeth, glaring at me resentfully. Besides, when I talked to my parents about it, they supported me too. Even without your help, I have plenty of people I can rely on. But Mike staggered to his feet and grabbed Jim's shoulder. "Jim, do you want to live with Dad? The real family is with Dad, right? Right?" Jim stared into Mike's eyes for a moment, then slowly shook his head and gently removed Mike's hand from his shoulder. "I'm fine with just Mom. She's always been there to help me. When I was scared and couldn't sleep, when I had bad times and good times, Mom was always there to listen. But Jim, you and Sophia are not related by blood. Your real family is me. And you ran away when I was in pain? And you call yourself a father?" Mike recoiled under Jim's steady gaze. "Jim, but I care about you. You've been annoying since a while ago. Besides, I'm already in elementary school. I don't call you a dad anymore. I call Mom a mother, you know? You don't even know that, and you say you're my father? Jim, but you should have just stayed happy with Kate. Even if she was a man, it's rare to find someone who would like you." Rejected so outrightly, Mike had no ground to stand on. He finally seemed to accept defeat, his shoulders slumping, knowing he could turn on the charm to gain sympathy at any moment. Both Jim and I firmly refused and left the house. "From now on, please communicate through the lawyer." I said this as my final word to Mike, who offered no reply. Knowing that Jim was earning money, Mike predictably refused to back down from the divorce. "Jim is my precious son. We share blood. Why should we live apart? That's just wrong." Despite his previous lack of interest, he desperately tried to gain custody of Jim. Surprisingly, it was my in-laws who convinced him otherwise. "Listen here, we heard from Jim. You hardly cared for him, left him with Sophia, and cheated elsewhere. After all that, how dare you claim any rights?" Exactly. Raising a child is not as easy as you think. The responsibility, the constant vigilance, and it's every day. You dumped all that on Sophia, and now you're struggling in hindsight. That's disgraceful. I had been mistaken. I thought Jim was unwelcome by my in-laws, But they had been trying their best to raise him, despite the physical and mental toll. Jim also said, "Even if they divorce, I want to see Grandma and Grandpa again." After several attempts by my in-laws to persuade him, Mike finally agreed to the divorce. Of course, demanded compensation. Though he appeared to have no savings, we discovered a secret account he had been squirreling money away in. Thankfully, we received the full amount of compensation from that account. As for child support, my in-laws said they would ensure Mike's responsibility. Later, after Kate reported him to the president of Johnson Construction, Mike became the target of scrutiny at work. He eventually resigned and is now making ends meet through part-time jobs. Jim and I are living happily. He still loves drawing, and his enjoyment is truly adorable. He continues his rehabilitation for his body. Although it's slow, there's steady improvement. We're being careful not to overdo it. As for my video editing work, I'd say it's within manageable limits. But actually, my dream has changed. I enrolled in a vocational school to become a physical therapist. The inspiration was simple. I admired the therapists who supported Jim's efforts. Someday, I hope to help children like Jim. Recently, people say Jim and I look alike. Even though we are not blood related, Jim shyly remarks, and I cherish him even more. As a mother, I vow to support him until the day he is ready to leave the nest. It is a day I both anticipate and dread with mixed feelings.